When most of Europe thought power meant castles, armies, and piles of gold locked inside royal vaults, a small country on the edge of the continent was quietly rewriting the rules of empire. In the early 1600s, the Dutch Republic didn't look like a future superpower at all. It had no vast mines, no endless farmland, no massive population, and not even much solid ground. A good part of the country was constantly fighting the sea. Yet somehow, money from across Europe flowed into Amsterdam, the world's busiest ports operated along its canals, and a new kind of power was taking shape. The Dutch realized something most empires hadn't yet understood. Wealth wasn't something you stored, it was something you kept moving. And when money moves intelligently, it multiplies influence faster than any army ever could. The rise of the Netherlands wasn't a fairy tale of peaceful prosperity. It was born out of hardship, rebellion, and survival. For decades the Dutch fought the Spanish Empire, at the time the richest and most powerful state in Europe, suffering heavy taxes, religious oppression, and economic pressure. To survive against such a giant, they couldn't rely on brute force. They had to build a smarter system. And at the heart of that system were two things: trade and trust. Not emotional trust, but economic trust. Trust that contracts would be honored, that money would keep its value, that courts would enforce agreements, that debts would be repaid. This invisible framework became the fuel of Dutch power. To understand why this mattered so much, imagine global trade in the 1600s. Spices, silk, porcelain, sugar, tea, these weren't just luxury items, they were the most profitable commodities on earth. But reaching Asia meant months at sea, facing storms, disease, pirates, and shipwrecks. One failed voyage could ruin a merchant forever. In most countries, only the wealthiest individuals could even attempt such journeys. The Dutch changed everything by spreading risk across many investors. Instead of one person funding a ship, hundreds of people bought shares in a company. In 1602, they created the Dutch East India Company, the VOC, effectively the world's first multinational corporation. This wasn't just a business. The VOC could build forts, sign treaties, wage wars, and control trade routes. It blurred the line between state and private capital in a way never seen before. Investors no longer gambled on single voyages. They invested in an ongoing system that launched expedition after expedition. Losses were absorbed. Profits were reinvested. Capital grew continuously. This single idea unlocked massive wealth creation and turned Amsterdam into the financial heart of Europe. Soon a stock exchange culture emerged. Shares were bought and sold daily. News from distant ports moved prices. Speculation appeared. Information became valuable. In many ways, modern financial markets were being born in real time. But this system could only function with stability, and that's where Dutch institutions played a crucial role. Amsterdam's Wisselbank helped standardize payments in a world filled with different coins of varying purity and weight. Merchants could trade with confidence instead of constantly worrying about fraud or devalued currency. Order replaced chaos, and order is what allows economies to scale. The Dutch also mastered risk management. Marine insurance became common. Cargo could be insured. Ships could be insured. Risk now had a price, and once risk is priced, it can be controlled. This allowed trade to expand far beyond what fear alone would permit. Meanwhile, Dutch shipbuilders revolutionized logistics. Their cargo ships required fewer sailors, carried more goods, and traveled cheaper than competitors' vessels. Lower costs meant higher profits and faster expansion. The Netherlands didn't just trade more, it traded smarter. From Baltic grain that fed Europe, to Asian spices that fueled fortunes, Dutch networks connected continents. Amsterdam became less a city and more a global distribution machine, where goods flowed in, were stored, traded, and sent back out across the world. But this financial empire wasn't built without darkness. Dutch trading companies enforced monopolies, used violence in colonies, and participated in the Atlantic slave trade. Like every great power, prosperity came with moral costs. The system was efficient, but often brutal. History rarely offers clean victories. Still, the Dutch achieved something revolutionary. They turned money into leverage. Small resources produced massive influence. Capital was organized, trust was institutionalized, and information became power. Unlike Spain's gold-driven economy that consumed wealth, Dutch society reinvested it. Merchants rose in status. Cities replaced royal courts as centers of power. Wealth flowed back into ships, businesses, science, art, and infrastructure. This is why the Dutch Golden Age produced not only global trade dominance but also cultural explosions in painting, publishing, and innovation. Over time, other nations learned from the Dutch, especially England. Financial markets, national debt systems, stock exchanges, insurance structures, and global trade networks were refined and scaled up. Eventually, Britain surpassed the Netherlands in size and power. But the blueprint remained Dutch. And that's the real legacy. The Netherlands didn't just become rich, it designed the modern economic system. Investment funds, multinational corporations, global shipping networks, stock markets, financial risk management, and trust-based institutions all trace their roots to this period. The contrast with Spain is striking. Spain drowned in gold and silver but collapsed because it treated money as wealth. The Dutch treated money as a tool, a system to multiply productivity. One empire hoarded treasure. The other built financial engines. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The world we live in today still runs on the Dutch model. Power no longer comes mainly from territory or armies. It comes from controlling capital flows, trade routes, financial systems, debt structures, and trust networks. Countries pressure each other through currencies, sanctions, interest rates, and supply chains, not just weapons. The Dutch understood this 400 years ago. Their true empire wasn't drawn on maps. It existed in contracts, ledgers, shipping routes, and financial institutions. Invisible, but incredibly powerful. So when we look back at the Netherlands and wonder how such a small nation shaped global history, the answer is simple but profound. They turned money into a weapon, silent, precise, and unstoppable. If you want to understand how empires truly rise and fall, don't just study their battles. Study their balance sheets. Because history often changes direction not on the battlefield, but in the accounting books.